Hey guys, welcome to episode 53 of the Rat Grind. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today is June 13th. It's a Wednesday here in the US. And I just wanted to talk to you guys and put out an episode and video that's going to talk about the continued bloodbath in the crypto market. We're going to look at Ethereum and Bitcoin and where the market potentially is heading. We're going to, breeze through the charts and see where the rest of the top 100 coins are going, and we're going to be looking at some news today, right? So first of all, if this is your first time on this channel, just some friendly reminder, please do subscribe if you like the content. Please hit the notification bell so that you know whenever I put out new content that I do every single day. And also, please smash the likes, those thumbs up. Please support this channel and let me know how it's doing, how the content is benefiting you, and how the content is providing you valuable impact. The last thing is I want to be able to please hear from you. Get your feedback, get your comments so that I can be able to better this channel and continue providing you impactful content, right? So let's get right to it, guys. So the first thing that we want to look into, like I said, we want to know what's happening in the crypto market. We all know that it's dropped to about 279 billion. I just checked just a few minutes ago before I went live about the crypto markets, and that's where we are now. And Bitcoin and Ethereum headed down even more, but experienced a green bounce. So right now they're in a green, but a very, very small candle. So we're going to look at the RSI levels, the oversold levels. We're going to look at the conversions, how far it is taking in from the current bearish divergence that I showed you guys yesterday. How far is it from going back to a more bullish state, right? So we're going to look at all that. So there's a couple news. I mean, like I say, there's always a ton of news that's happening in the crypto space. This is a very, very fast moving industry, but I want to focus on three main news. The first thing is the SEC today, like I've been telling you guys, they have this Investing in America conference that they did. And here, Chairman Clayton again said that ICOs are securities, and he emphasized, I don't know how much clearer I can be. That's what he said. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to look at that piece of news. The second piece of news is the Federal Reserve increased its rates about 0.25% to 2% now. So that might not be directly related to the crypto space, but anytime there's a big move within centralized governments, especially the United States, which is the largest economy in the world, we want to see how that could potentially affect the markets, right? Because it's going to affect everything overall. And although the cryptocurrency market is relatively new, we want to see how it affects the overall market and potentially how it can affect the crypto market as well. And the last bit of news, which I think it's horrible and it's a little bit of negative news, and I don't want to try to spread FUD or anything like that, but it has been reported that there's been some price manipulation that did cause the 2017, if you remember, the 2017 December price surge, right? And Bitfinex is, again, in the middle of all this. So let's get right to the charts, guys. So if you can see again behind me, I just refreshed this a couple of seconds ago. The overall market is still red. The bloodbath continues, like I said, although the drops are not as significant as it was yesterday. Yesterday, when we were looking at this chart, this Coin360 overall chart, we saw that a lot of the cryptos were sometimes double-digit drops, right? So today, some of them were able to pull back above, where it was bouncing off of, and, we want to see how that all continues. Now, there are some major currencies that have been able to recover, like EOS, slight over 1%, less than 1% increase, but Cardano experienced about a 6.19% increase. So these are some of the projects that we want to be able to look at least something out of the top 10 is in green. So let's look at coin market cap and see where the market is as of the moment. So we'll see right now the market cap, actually it went down. I said it was 279. Currently is $278 billion, right? 278.483 billion dollars. The 24-hour volume is relatively high. There's a lot of transactions that's happening. Probably a lot of people are trading and buying and selling overall, within the crypto space, and there's about $17.3 billion, and the Bitcoin dominance is again zero point 0.1 away from a 40% of Bitcoin dominance. That means that the majority of the liquidity in the overall crypto market is in Bitcoin right now, which is, we don't want that to happen. We want that to be spread out. We want to spread the love in the crypto space, right? And of course, that's an inherent thing that happens because a lot of people, they buy their pairs using Bitcoin. So when their cryptocurrencies, altcoins are going down, of course, they're going to sell back into their Bitcoin pairs, which I do as well, but I trade a lot more Ethereum pairs, right? So if we look at the overall market in general, the top 100, we can see some greens here, right? So when we were looking at this yesterday, everything was pretty much in the red, double digits. But you can see the charts, it's ticked up a little bit. It's recovered a very, very small percentage of the losses that it's been incurring the past couple days. But there are some specific coins. Sia coin up 11.35%, Icon 11%, Skycoin 7.32%, Digix DAO is up 5.81%. So that's really, really good, guys. But a lot of this is above the 50. Cardano is the only one that had made significant, I wouldn't say significant, but compared to the rest of the market, a good recovery, right? That's very, very small, but good recovery. Any recovery is good for us. Let's look at the ones that drop. Loom Network, Mithril, Cortex, Fusion, a lot of these. Oh, even Buybox token is down, and Binance Coin as well. So, and surprisingly, Ethereum Classic, as you can see in this particular chart here, if you can see my cursor, it pumped that day that Coinbase announced it, right? And people, of course, they take their profits and it drops back down. As you can see, its trajectory here is it leveled out to what it should have been if there was no new announcement from Coinbase, right? So that's really, really something that we want to be able to keep a watchful eye on what happens in this space, because we all know what happened to Bitcoin Cash as soon as it was actually listed. I think it went up, man, almost like 8 times. I mean, just for a very short period of time, and that's what happened with Coinbase, because there's a lot of liquidity that goes into that particular crypto. So we're going to try to see what happens there. So let's look at the charts, guys. So let's look at Bitcoin. So right now, as you can see, I drew these lines out in the last couple of videos, and we've been looking at them. So let's zoom in here a little bit. As you can see, I hope you can see this, guys. Let me scroll up here. So as you can see, it's a green candle right now, right? It bounced off of this 6,000 line. It never actually reached below 6,000, which is a really good thing. We could have gone down to about 5,400, which, it's a lot of the shorting traders are targeting around the 5,500 all the way down to 4,800 is what they're targeting to take short profits on. But we were able to bounce, but it still has some resistance going on there. Let's add the EMAs here, right? We have the 12, 26, 50, 100, and 200 EMA right here. As you can see, for the 12-day EMA, it's trading below that, and everything is, trajecting down still. Although we do have a good candle here, but as you can see, there's quite a wick above this, so that means that it's rejected. It's being rejected by this line. It bounced through, it bounced on this 6,000 line, and it was rejected about here on the 6450 line. So that's not something that we want to be able to see continue happen. We want it to actually push through that. So we're going to have to see what happens tomorrow, and it's going to be Thursday. We're closing in on the weekend, and hopefully there's more liquidity that comes into the markets, right? So if we look at the volume today, there's not much volume today, as you can see. The green volume down here is not that much. There's still a lot more red candles, red columns that had transpired in the last couple of days that caused it to drop where it is now. Please don't mind these lines. I'm going to talk about these lines in particular later. But let's look at the RSI level. We're looking at the one-day chart on Bitfinex right now. So if we look at the RSI, we're still oversold, guys, right? It's really, really low. And we were hoping, I drew this line out. to see where, where the momentum was going. It seems like there's more for us to there's more downward momentum for us to potentially take. So I want this to point up, like right here. I want it to point up and continue a recovery up, but that's not currently happening. I don't see that yet, so we're gonna have to keep watching on that. If we look at the MACD, as you can see, there, we're still watching the same bearish convergence that happened, so it's still on a decline, and there's still some selling momentum up here, and we want to be able to see this these yellow columns here, the MACD, to sort of taper off and go down, and that's what we want to be able to see. But currently it's still on the way down. So again, the TA and looking at these charts is not a definite indicator of what exactly is going to go on in the space, but it's, we're looking at probabilities, right? So the probability of it continuing a downward spiral is very, very likely. But of course, like I told you guys yesterday in the last couple of videos, that there's a lot of things that we still can't predict within the market, right? Because there's things that happens if there's a good buy into the space, potentially that's what that's what's going to happen. I still think that a lot of the big financial institutions buying things on the over the counter, off the markets, so they're not becoming market makers, are still sort of not showing up in the markets, right? Because they're making their purchases outside of the market. So whatever volume they buy into Bitcoin or any of the other cryptos don't really reflect on the market. So that's potentially why it's, we're not seeing those gains, even though there's a lot of bullish news that's happening all over the world. So let's look at Ethereum. And I always look at Ethereum because of the fact that a lot of my trading pairs happen in Ethereum. Hopefully, if I get your guys' comments and see what other cryptos you'd like me to look at, I'll go ahead and start looking at those as well. But these are the two main coins currently that I always want to be able to look for, because a lot of the altcoins are traded with this, unless you're trading with USDT or like a crypto, a trading exchange-based pair like a Binance coin and stuff like that. Mostly you're going to be using Ethereum or Bitcoin to buy your altcoin. So that's why I want to be able to look at these. So if we see what happened to Ethereum, guys, again, we're still bouncing off that line, and that's what we talked about this last night, and this candle hadn't transpired yesterday. And as you can see, it bounced below that 484. So it was like it touched below the 484 line, but it was able to bounce back up within that range. So as you can see, it's trading within this particular range right here. Hope you guys can see this. Yeah, I hope you guys can see this circle right here that I drew out. So it's a green candle right now, but it's a spinning top. Basically, there's a wick on the bottom and there's a wick on the upside as well. So it's being rejected by this 492 line, and as well as bouncing below the 485. So we're going to have to see what happens here. In this instance, let's look at the lower time frames. So if we look at the lower time frames, those are really bullish candles. So we're going to see, but it is being rejected by this line. So we're going to have to see how this plays out in the markets. Let's look at the RSI for this particular coin. Let's go back to the one day chart. Again, similar to Bitcoin, the momentum is still on the way down. I mean, what we want to be able to see, as you can see here, when things sell off, right? It has this trend, and when it starts to taper off, it sort of follows this pattern right here, right? It goes all the way down. But as you can see here, we are still selling off, right? So we want to be able to see in this particular MACD columns is we want it to go this way, and as it passes here, as it passes this zero line right here, that's when we're going to see the convergence, right? It's going to go on a bullish or bearish divergence, right? As you can see here, when it crossed bearish right here, as you can see, it moved from the positive side to the negative side of this MACD line, and that's what we want to be able to see, and that happened here as well. But there was then enough buying momentum that happened when it crossed, so of course it drops continuously down. So that's what we want to be able to see. Let's look at the RSI, guys. So the RSI is ticking up. So that's a really good thing. I mean, when we look at Bitcoin, it sort of was flat and it went down even lower. But we want to be able to go above this this line. So if I was going to enter a trade to take a long positions are basically you're betting on the market to go up. If you're shorting, you're betting it to go down. If I'm sure you guys already know that, but I just wanted to clarify it for those people that don't. When it passes this line, that's when I would be able to, I think, in my opinion, take a position on the market, right? But I'm going to look at the lower time frames and confirm that it is on a bullish uptick on the RSI, and I'm going to see how close the convergence is, and I want it to converge because there has been times in the past when it had converged just a little bit like it did previously. Now let's go back to the chart. As you can see here, it converged and it dropped back down. So we want to be able to see those confluences, right? The best probability. So if these all shows that they're going on a bullish momentum and the chart is going down, that's a sign of a reversal that could potentially get bought up. So we want to be able to see that happen before we really commit to some longs. But if you want to be able to play the smaller time frames, by all means, feel free to do that. You can play the 5-minute chart. You can go to Coinbase and play those charts, right? So as you can see here, once it moves up, there's potentially money to be made in the 5-minute chart. So if you had traded the 5-minute chart, so if you bought here when it was down here, bought there, that's a good 0.78%, but you would rather have bought down here and were able to sell at around 4%. So you could play those. You can play those as well if you want to. For these major coins, I usually look at the day, 4-hour charts, and as no lower than an hour chart is what I look at when I play these major coins. When I look at the altcoins, that's when I look into like sometimes even a minute chart. Minutes, I look at the trajectory of the day. I trade them within the 5-minute chart, 15-minute chart, 30-minute chart to be able to get in and out of those trades relatively quickly. So, but please, this is not financial advice. I always tell you guys, right? I have the disclaimer at the beginning of this video. Please don't copy my trades. I'm not a licensed financial advisor. I'm no expert in telling you exactly which to buy because I can't predict what the market is going to do. I'm just looking at the probabilities of making the most out of making those trades and seeing the probabilities that it will go up or go down and get out when I can, right? So don't copy my trades. Please do your own research, right? So that's pretty much that we're going to look at on those charts. Let's go to the news, guys. So the first bit of news that I want to be able to share with you guys, like I was telling you guys, the meeting today, this is on CryptoVest. The SEC had the Investing in America discussion where they had live comments on ICO regulations. And one of the key things that I want to be able to talk to you guys here is just this particular quote. I think this is very self-explanatory. When the chairman Clayton had this interview on CNBC, I believe last Thursday, I also reported on that news. He also said the same thing, so he didn't really change his stance. He said the question that we received was, does the SEC have any official position that relates to blockchain technology? Because right now, without a lot of clear guidance, a lot new technology are moving overseas. How will you keep those technologies here in the US? And he said, a blockchain technology has incredible promise for the securities and other industries. I think we can all agree on that. What blockchain technology does, among other things, is that it does greatly reduce transaction cost, including cost of verification. Powerful technology, he said. So with that statement, you can tell that they are not looking at blockchain and ICOs to disappear from this space. They do want to keep investors like you and I, retail investors, safe, right? So he said that we've been very clear for a long time on how to conduct fundraising when you're offering securities. Much of what I see in ICO space is a security offering. It is raising money for a project where I give you my money. You give me some type of right back that reflects a return on the project. that is in and of itself a security offering. He said, I don't know how much clearer I can be from that standpoint. And this is something you guys really need to accept. I mean, there's a lot of when I read the comments on the forums, on Telegram groups, on Discord channels, and as well as on Facebook, the groups that I'm a member of, a lot of people are in denial. They said, well, I'm not really earning dividends. I'm not really buying a stock. But the position stands that if an ICO gives you something in return for money, and you are banking on that particular asset, or however you see it, to give you back profits in return, then that in itself is security, right? If you go ahead and buy, if you want to say this is a commodity, right? Let's say it's a commodity. So if you consider it a commodity, then it's something that you would consume, right? Like electricity. Electricity you would consider a commodity because you're not buying electricity to make money off of it, right? I'm not starting a electricity farm. Maybe if that's what I'm doing, if I start an electricity farm and sell the tokens for that electricity farm, then I'm offering security because I'm working. That person who's buying that particular token is looking for money in return. So I think that's something that he's very, very clear on. Now, that does not mean that every single cryptocurrencies is a security, But if you are an ICO, then you just have to go through the steps in being able to be recognized by the SEC. A lot of ICOs pay millions of dollars to be listed on major exchanges like Binance and all this stuff. So why not take the extra step to actually be credited? And a lot of ICOs are actually moving away from America, from the US. Like they were saying in this particular meeting, there's a lot of opportunity is being lost because of the exchanges. But think about it. If all these ICOs went through the process, that does not prevent us from buying them up, right? So they just need to be able to go through the process. But here in the US, you have to understand, you have to be an accredited investor for you to be able to invest in these ICOs, right? So, but still, what they're doing right now, they're just going behind the backs of these regulators and trying to raise money that way. So we're gonna see how this all gets fixed up. There's still a hearing that's going on between Ripple and the government, trying to see, because they're accusing Ripple to be a security, right? So we're gonna have to see how that all plays out. So the next bit of news that I want to share with you guys is this. The Federal Reserve here in the United States, basically the central bank of the US, raised interest rates today. And why this matters, right? I mean, basically, the Federal Reserve raised its benchmark interest for the seventh time since late 2015, and the second time this year. So the current rate was 1.75%. Now it's 2%. So they raised it about 0.25%. Now, for the last couple of years, I mean, as a response to the 2008 financial crisis that happened, that, basically banks went bankrupt, they had to be bailed out and all that stuff. Basically, the interest rate was 0. Right? So now we're at 2%. You can read more about this and how this affects the market and stuff like that. But just to give you guys a overview of what happens. Usually, the reason that the Federal Reserve raises rates is so that they can curb the flow of money because they feel that the economy is doing much better. So what they do is they want to raise the rates. These federal rates are what the banks use to pay each other when they lend money. These banks borrow money from the Federal Reserve, buy money from the Federal Reserve, and they lend to each other. So these daily rates, these overnight rates, are what that reflects. And then those prime rates that they use to lend to each other, it's also going to affect the people that borrow money, your credit cards, your loans for your house, for your car, or any debt that you try to incur. There will be an effect on that because the rates will go up, and so will your rates over time. Usually it takes about a year, 12 months for you to actually feel it. But of course, stocks and the stock markets do respond relatively quickly because there are businesses, most businesses, they rely on loans, right? They need to take capital. They need to take out loans so that they can infuse that capital into their day-to-day business so that they can, operate. So once those rates go up, of course, their business is going to go up, prices are going to go up, and all that stuff. And that's exactly what the Federal Reserve is trying to do. When they lower it, that's when they want to be able to infuse more money into the system. Because what happens is when the interest rates is higher, people tend to not take out loans. When you don't take out loans, people tend to hoard their money. Not in a super way, but it's just in a small way, the banks are not going to make more money because of the fact that there's going to be less people that are going to be borrowing money. But the good thing is, if you're a saver, to those of you that are savers, I personally am not a saver. I invest my money, I don't save it. But if you are a saver, that means that you will see a slight increase potentially on the interest rates that you're going to get on your savings account. If you have those CDs and money market accounts and stuff like that, you may potentially get that. So why am I reporting this? Because I want to see how this relates to the crypto space. We know that in the stock market, when the Federal Reserve raises the rates, the stock market usually goes down. And when they decrease the rates, stock market usually goes up. That's just what happens. I don't know exactly what are the metrics on why that happens, but that's historically what does happen. So we want to be able to see how this affects the crypto market. When the rates go down, maybe it's an opposite, because instead of people putting their money in the stock market, they're going to put it in crypto. So we're going to have to see how this all transpires, right? So the last bit of news that I want to be able to share with you guys, I want to keep this within 30 minutes, right? There's a study that was done in Texas, right? Is Bitcoin really untethered, right? We've been talking about the whole crypto space has been talking about Tether nonstop since they were subpoenaed by the U.S. government, right? For, they wanted to audit them. And this is from John M. Griffin and Amin Shams, right? So they say the abstract, the whole purpose of the study is this. This paper investigates whether Tether, a digital currency pegged to US dollar, influences Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency prices during the recent boom. Using algorithms to analyze the blockchain data, we find that purchases with Tether are timed following market downturns and result in sizable increases in Bitcoin prices. Less than 1% of hours with such heavy Tether transactions are associated with 50% of the meteoric rise in Bitcoin and 64% of other top cryptocurrencies. The flow clusters below round prices induces asymmetric autocorrelation in Bitcoin and suggest incomplete Tether backing before month's end. These patterns cannot be explained by investors' demands proxies, but are most consistent with the supply-based hypotheses where Tether is used to provide price support and manipulate cryptocurrency prices. That is huge, guys. That is huge. And the reason I wanted to, let's go back to the charts. And by the way, this was reported on, just so that you know that I just didn't make that up. This was reported on the New York Times, right? Bitcoin price was artificially inflated last year, research says, right? So the manipulation didn't cause the market to crash today or this past year. The past months of this year so far. But we potentially are feeling the effects of that because it was so inflated. Basically, every time, what they're saying is, from this report, every time that Bitcoin prices were going down in 2017, more Tether was printed and the price shot up because a lot of the transaction volume was not actually in dollars, but in Tether. And we all know it's like an open secret that Bitfinex owns Tether. They're one and the same. Of course, they're totally different organizations, but pretty much you can read it everywhere. You can do your own research that people have been able to tie these things together. If you're curious, look for Bitfinex with an ED. His blog, because he's all over this, and he's talked about Tether so much that basically they were being audited, but they weren't really being audited. They kicked out the auditors and stuff like that because each Tether is supposed to have a USD dollar tied to each piece of Tether. And that's not what's happening, guys. That doesn't seem to be what's happening. So let me go back to the charts for Bitcoin. So let's look at Bitfinex, since pretty much this is where this all stems from. Let's go back to the 1-day chart. So this is precisely reason. Let me remove all these indicators just so that it cleans up this up a little bit. So far this year, I'm not sure if you guys see a pattern here, but so far this year, you see these lines that I drew, these I hope you guys see it. These vertical lines, these are when Tether was printed. This was about, I believe, 300 million or 300,000. I have to double check. That's when that was printed there. And again, on March 20th, they were also printed. But a lot of them were printed here. And I hadn't even researched and looked back all the way down to here, which I probably should do so that we can look at this chart once again. I probably will do that this weekend. I'm going to research it more. So every time this is printed, as you can see, it was downturning, and it seems like it goes back up. It goes on the downturn. They print it in the middle of the downturn, and it gets bought back up. Middle of the downturn gets bought back up. So, maybe if we see that Tether is printed again, in the next weeks or so, then potentially, that could be another pattern that we look at to when Tether is printed, crypto prices are gonna go up. I'm not saying that's exactly what's gonna happen, but if we look at the correlation, if it happens again, then maybe that's something that's a pattern that we can be able to look at. You can look at these dates. You could just Google Tether printing. And there's a lot of people that give you the address when it says grant property tokens. And you can see exactly the dates and you can chart them out. You can look for yourself when these dates are happening and what was the market like. I mean, I just looked at it this year and this is what I've seen. They've been printing Tether sort of in the middle of a downturn, and then it drops even more. And whatever they do, somebody accumulates more Bitcoin, Ethereum, or whatever the case may be, and that gets bought up, right? So a lot of people are calling for, people to move away from USDT because it's like the dollar. It's like it's supposed to be pegged by something, but it's not pegged by anything. If the dollar collapses, so does USDT. But even without the USD collapse, USDT is basically hyperinflating its own value. So that's not something that we want to be able to bank on. There's a lot more stable coins that that are out there that have less of a risk. But I believe that USDT, that's why I choose not to trade into USDT pairs, but a lot of people do. A lot of people do. They trade on Bitfinex and they use USDT because it's the price is about $1.99, $1.02. It's closely related to the US dollar. But personally, that's not something that I can really rely on. So that's pretty much it, guys. I hope that you guys found value in today's video, and I hope that you'll be able to take this video and make some good decisions out there. The blood is still red, the bloods are on the street. This is the time to really get to understand the projects. Like I always tell you guys, understand the coins that you're buying so that you know that there's futures in the products, in the companies, and in the projects. Know that a lot of these projects are just white papers. So if you're banking on those white papers to actually materialize, then you're all of this is risky. All of this is risky, but you want to minimize those risks. Again, risk management. Don't expose yourself too much because you are trying to save your hard-earned money. You're doing this, you're getting into crypto so that you can invest and increase your wealth, right? Why speculate on currencies that could potentially be gone in the next 6 months or so? Look for projects that have made significant strides in their projects, have a good team backing them, and they're making good progress. You know, the MVP, minimum viable product, at least is out there, or they're continuing to improve them. For me, I bank on Bitcoin because it's proven. Ethereum is out here. To me, it's proven because a lot of the ICOs, thousands of them, are basically formed and backed by ERC20 tokens. So that tells me that there's a lot of use cases for Ethereum itself. That's why I really believe in those cryptocurrencies. Now, there are cryptocurrencies that I also believe in, like Cardano and a few others, that I feel that the projects are making a lot of progress. Although the mainnet and all these, they're not completely live yet, but there's progress being made, right? Zilliqa is another coin, another platform that I'm really bullish on. There's actually an ICO that reached out to me that is going to be launched once the Zilliqa mainnet launches. So, but right now they're gonna put out a placeholder token. So we're gonna try to see what happens in the overall market, guys. So be safe out there. You know, keep your currencies, keep your investments safe, your hard-earned money safe, right? That's pretty much it, guys. I hope to see you guys on the next video. If you found value in this, please hit the smash the likes, hit the thumbs up, comment on the video. Let me know what you like, what you didn't like. Let me know what you think about the topics that we covered today and where you feel the market is headed. All right. Well, until I see you guys on the next video tomorrow, I wish you and your family a success-filled day. Good night, guys. Love you. Bye.